It was late at night when Daniel clicked on the video. He was not searching for answers about reality. He was not thinking about frequency. He was only scrolling, half awake, letting the algorithm decide what came next. And then he saw the title. This message reached you because your frequency aligns with it. He paused. Something about the words felt personal, almost direct, as if the screen was not showing content to millions, but speaking only to him. He almost kept scrolling, but he did not. Earlier that day, something strange had already happened. In the morning, while making coffee, Daniel suddenly thought about an old friend he had not spoken to in years. There was no reason for the thought, no memory triggered it. It just appeared. By the afternoon, his phone buzzed. It was that same friend. A simple message. "Hey, you crossed my mind today." Daniel had stared at the screen for a long moment. Coincidence, he told himself, but the feeling stayed with him. Later that evening, while driving home, he wondered quietly if he should change careers. It was not a strong decision. It's just a soft question in the back of his mind. At dinner, a stranger sitting next to him started talking about a job opening in a field Daniel had secretly been thinking about. Again, coincidence, but now, alone in his dim room. The video title felt like the third tap on the shoulder. He clicked. The screen faded to black. A calm voice began to speak. He did not find this by accident. Daniel felt a slight chill. The voice continued. "What if your attention is not random? What if what you notices you back?" Daniel leaned forward. The video spoke about something called the observer effect. It explained that in the world of tiny particles, things behave differently when they are watched. When no one looks, particles act like waves. When someone measures them, they act like solid objects. The act of observing changes the result. Daniel frowned slightly. He had heard of strange ideas in physics before, but this felt different tonight. The voice asked a simple question. If observation can shape particles, what might attention do in your daily life? Daniel thought about his morning, about the text message, about the stranger at dinner. The voice continued. Maybe reality is not fixed. Maybe it holds many possibilities, and your focus selects which one becomes real. Daniel felt both curious and uneasy. Was he choosing what happened, or was he just noticing patterns after they occurred? The room felt quieter than before. The video did not claim magic. It did not promise control over the universe. It only suggested something smaller, yet deeper. That attention is active. That focus is not passive. That awareness may participate in shaping experience. Daniel's mind replayed the small events of his day. How many times had he ignored similar moments? How many times had something subtle tried to get his attention? The voice lowered slightly. What if you are not just watching this message? What if your current state of mind made it visible to you? Daniel glanced at the time. He had planned to sleep early, but now he was fully awake. It felt less like he'd found a random video, and more like he'd stepped into something already in motion. A strange thought entered his mind. If he had been in a different mood tonight, if he had focused on something else, would this video have appeared at all? Or had his thoughts, questions, and quiet doubts been tuning him toward it all along? Outside, the night was still. Inside, a new question was forming. Was Daniel observing reality? Or was reality responding to him? And if this message reached him because of his frequency, what else might already be aligning, waiting for him to notice? Daniel did not close the video. Instead, he turned up the volume slightly. The calm voice began to explain something simple, yet strange. In a quiet laboratory, far from Daniel's apartment, scientists study particles so small they cannot be seen with the eyes. These particles are smaller than atoms. They move in ways that do not follow normal rules. The video described one famous experiment. When scientists send tiny particles through two small openings, something unexpected happens. If no one measures which opening the particle passes through, it behaves like a wave. It spreads out, almost as if it passes through both openings at the same time. But when scientists place a detector to watch it, the particle acts differently. It behaves like a solid object. It chooses one opening. The act of observing changes the outcome. Daniel blinked slowly. The voice explained it in very simple words. Before measurement, the particle exists in possibility. After measurement, it exists. In one clear result, the possibility becomes fact. Daniel felt a small tension in his chest. This was not philosophy. This was physics. Tested, repeated, confirmed in labs around the world. The video mentioned that even great scientists struggled with this idea, including Albert Einstein, who felt uncomfortable with how strange the quantum world appeared. If reality at its smallest level responds to observation, then what is observation? Is it the machine that measures, or the conscious mind that reads the result? Daniel had always believed the world existed in a solid, fixed way. A chair was a chair, a wall was a wall. Events happened whether he paid attention or not, but now he was hearing something different. At the deepest level, reality may not be solid until interaction happens. The voice did not say that. Humans create the universe. It did not claim that thoughts magically control atoms. He said something more careful. Observation is interaction, and interaction shapes outcomes. Daniel thought about this slowly. When he checks his email, he changes his mood. When he looks at a message, he responds. When he responds, the situation shifts. Even in normal life, observation is not passive. The video continued. In quantum physics, the observer does not stand outside the system. The observer becomes part of it. Daniel repeated the sentence quietly in his mind. Part of it. He imagined the scientists in their lab, setting up equipment, adjusting detectors, waiting for results. The particles were not performing alone. They were responding to conditions, and the measuring device was one of those conditions. The voice asked another simple question. If small particles react to how they are measured, could larger systems also respond to how they are engaged? Daniel felt both skeptical and fascinated. He did not want to jump to big conclusions, but he could not ignore the pattern. In physics, the observer effect shows that outcomes depend on interaction. In daily life, outcomes also depend on attention and response. He remembered the morning text again. If he had ignored the thought of his friend, would he have noticed the message the same way? If he had dismissed the stranger at dinner, would the opportunity have felt meaningful? The voice stayed calm and neutral. Science does not say that you control everything. It shows that you are not separate from what you observe. Daniel looked around his quiet room. The walls felt the same. The furniture did not move. Yet something inside him was shifting. Maybe reality was not a fixed stage. Maybe it was more like a field of possibilities shaped by interaction. And maybe, just maybe, by watching this video, he was already participating in something larger than he understood. Daniel sat still. The idea of the observer effect was still moving inside his mind. But now the video shifted direction. It moved from particles and laboratories to something closer. To the human body, to the human mind. The voice spoke gently. Before asking if your frequency shapes reality, first ask, what is your frequency? Daniel listened carefully. The video explained in simple words. The brain works with electricity. Tiny signals move between cells every second. These signals create patterns. Scientists can measure these patterns. They call them brain waves. Some waves are fast, some are slow. Each pattern is linked to a mental state. When a person feels fear, the pattern changes. When a person feels calm, the pattern changes again. When someone focuses deeply, the rhythm becomes different. Daniel did not know much about neuroscience, but he understood one thing. Thoughts are not just invisible ideas. They create physical activity in the brain. The video continued. The heart also produces measurable signals. It sends electrical impulses through the body. These signals can be detected outside the chest. The body is not silent. It is active energy. The voice simplified it even more. Frequency is simply repeated energy over time. Daniel repeated the sentence in his head. Repeated energy. If he thinks the same type of thoughts every day, that pattern repeats. If he feels the same emotions again and again, that rhythm strengthens. Worry repeated becomes a steady signal. Confidence repeated becomes another signal. The video did not speak about magic. It did not claim supernatural powers. It explained something practical. The human nervous system is always sending signals. Those signals influence behavior. Behavior influences decisions. Decisions influence outcomes. Daniel began to connect the idea. If his mind constantly expects problems, he may notice more problems. If he expects rejection, he may act more closed. Others may respond to that, and the cycle continues. But if he expects opportunity, he may speak more openly. He may take small risks, and new doors may appear. Is that the universe changing, or is it his internal state, changing what he sees and how he acts? The voice asked quietly. What are you tuned to right now? Daniel imagined a radio. Many stations exist at the same time. Music, news, conversations, all moving through the air. But he only hears the one his radio selects. The other stations do not disappear. He just does not receive them. The video suggested a simple idea. Maybe reality also contains many possible paths, and attention acts like a tuner, not creating the station, but selecting it. Daniel thought about his recent weeks. He had been stressed, thinking often about what could go wrong, expecting delays, expecting mistakes, and he had noticed many small frustrations. Was it possible that his focus had sharpened his awareness of problems, not because the world was attacking him, but because his mind was scanning for threats? The voice did not give a final answer. It only said, "Your inner state shapes what stands out, and what stands out shapes your next action." Daniel felt something subtle, a sense of responsibility, not for controlling everything, but for recognizing his own patterns. If his frequency was the pattern of his repeated thoughts and emotions, then maybe he had more influence than he believed, not by forcing reality, but by choosing what to rehearse in his mind. The screen grew darker as the music softened, and a final question appeared. If your attention is a signal, what kind of signal have you been sending? Daniel leaned back in his chair. He could feel the tension of the past days replaying his mind. The video continued. "Notice the patterns in your life," the voice said softly. Daniel thought about the small coincidences that had caught his attention lately. The text from his old friend, the stranger at dinner, the job idea that appeared at the same moment he considered it. Were these random events? Or were these signals aligning with him? The video explained in simple language, reality may have many possible paths. A calm voice continued. Some paths happen whether you notice them or not, but what you focus on, what you give attention to, that path becomes visible to you. Daniel frowned. Could it be that attention was a kind of filter, not creating everything, but selecting what stands out? The narrator asked a question Daniel could not answer easily. What happens if you change your focus? Daniel decided to try an experiment. For 1 week, he would notice opportunities instead of problems. He would watch for small signs of connection instead of expecting rejection. He would pay attention to possibilities instead of repeating worries. The first day, he noticed subtle changes. A stranger smiled more easily at him on the street. A short conversation at work felt warmer than usual. A chance idea appeared in his notebook that could become something meaningful. Daniel felt a small spark of hope. By the third day, he noticed that even when nothing dramatic happened, his own feelings were different. He felt lighter, more open, more curious. The VO explained that alignment does not require magical thinking. It requires noticing, it requires attention, and it requires the willingness to test small changes in perception. Daniel realized that what he had called coincidences might be more than chance. Perhaps his thoughts, his focus, and his quiet expectations were tuning him to certain events. Like a radio dial slowly finding the right station, the narrator spoke directly. Some patterns in life are invisible until you align with them. Some opportunities exist in plain sight, but they require attention to appear real. Daniel thought about his morning. The little things that went unnoticed before now seemed significant. A fleeting thought could ripple into reality. A small expectation could shape experience. The line between coincidence and intentional alignment felt thinner than he had imagined. By the end of the week, Daniel was not expecting the world to change dramatically, but he noticed subtler shifts, small openings that had been invisible before, new ideas that seemed to find him rather than the other way around, connections that felt like they were quietly responding to him. The narrator paused, letting the ideas sink in. Your attention matters, your frequency matters. Even if you do not see the full effect yet, Daniel felt a new awareness. It was as if he had been walking through life half asleep, and now he was slowly waking, paying attention, noticing the invisible threads that connected events, feeling the quiet pull of alignment. The video left him with one final thought for this part. Your reality is not fixed. It contains multiple possibilities, and your focus begins to select which one becomes visible to you. Daniel realized that life itself was responding, not magically, not perfectly, but subtly, as if the universe whispered back whenever he tuned in, and for the first time in days, he felt connected, not just to the video, not just to the small events around him, but to a larger flow of possibilities. The flow he could begin to notice. The flow he could begin to align with. Daniel sat in silence after the experiment. For 1 week, he had changed his focus, and he had seen small shifts in his experience. But now a deeper question rose in his mind. If attention shapes what he sees, then who controlled his attention? The video moved into quieter territory. Many of your thoughts are automatic, the voice explained. Daniel felt that was true. He did not wake up and choose every thought. Some appeared on their own. Old memories, old fears, old habits of thinking. Sometimes he reacted before he even realized he had reacted. If someone criticized him, he felt defensive. If something went wrong, he expected more problems. It was like running a program he did not remember installing. The narrator continued, "Your brain is built to repeat patterns. What you think often becomes easier to think again. Neural pathways strengthen with repetition. Emotional reactions become familiar. Beliefs turn into filters." Daniel began to see something clearly. His frequency was not just random energy. It was a collection of repeated thoughts, repeated emotions, repeated focus. And most of it had been running automatically. So was he truly choosing his reality? Or was he simply replaying the past? The question felt heavy. If he was only a product of habits, an old conditioning, then where was freedom? The voice did not rush to answer. Instead, it asked something simple. "Can you notice your thoughts?" Daniel paused. Yes, he could. He could observe a worry arise. He could feel anger begin. He could sense doubt forming. And in that small moment of noticing, something interesting happened. There was space, a gap between the thought and the reaction. The narrator spoke softly. "Freedom may not be controlling every thought. Freedom may be choosing which thoughts you continue." Daniel felt the meaning slowly settle. He could not stop every negative idea from appearing, but he could decide whether to feed it with attention. He could not control every event in the world, but he could choose where to place his awareness next. The video connected this back to science. In quantum physics, observation selects an outcome. From possibilities, in daily life, awareness selects which mental pattern grows stronger. What he repeatedly observed within himself became stronger. If he constantly watched his fears, they expanded. If he noticed his strengths and acted on them, they expanded too. The power was not dramatic. It was subtle, almost quiet, but it was real. Daniel realized something important. Free will might not mean controlling the entire universe. It might mean guiding attention, like holding the steering wheel of a car that already has momentum. He could not instantly change direction at high speed, but he could slowly turn, gradually shift, patiently redirect. The narrator asked one final question. If your attention is shaping your inner frequency, and your frequency influences how you experience the world, then what are you choosing to strengthen each day? Daniel understood that this was not about blame. It was about awareness, not about forcing positivity, but about conscious participation. For the first time, he did not feel like a passive observer of his life. He felt like a participant, not all-powerful, not in control of every outcome, but not powerless either. Somewhere between destiny and randomness, there was attention. And in that attention, there was choice. The room was quiet again. Daniel looked at the dark screen for a moment after the video slowed its music. Something inside him felt different, not dramatic, not explosive, but clear. The voice returned one last time, calm and steady. Maybe reality is not something separate from you. Maybe it is a mirror responding to how you engage with it. Daniel thought about everything he had heard. The observer effect in physics, the way particles respond to measurement, the idea that possibility becomes outcome through interaction. Then he thought about his own life, his repeated thoughts, his emotional patterns, his shifting focus during the past week. He began to see a connection, not a magical one, not a fantasy, but a relationship. When he changed his attention, his behavior shifted, his tone changed, his posture changed, his decisions adjusted, and the responses from the world adjusted too. It was subtle, but real. The narrator explained in simple words. Reality may contain many possible experiences, but you do not experience all of them. You experience the ones you align with, through perception and action. Daniel imagined standing in a room filled with doors. All the doors existed, but he could only walk through one at a time. His beliefs influenced which door he noticed. His courage influenced which door he opened. His attention influenced which door even seemed possible. The world outside did not vanish. It did not bend to his wishes, but it responded to how he showed up. The voice continued, "You are not separate from the system you observe. You are part of it." Daniel understood that this idea carried responsibility. If he constantly expected the worst, he might unknowingly move toward it. If he constantly searched for meaning, he might begin to find it. Reality was not a simple machine. It was more like a conversation, a continuous exchange between inner state and outer event. The video did not promise that every dream would come true. It did not deny randomness or difficulty. It simply suggested something powerful. Your awareness matters. Your focus matters. Your frequency, the pattern of what you repeatedly think, feel, and act upon matters. Daniel took a slow breath. He remembered the moment he first saw the title. This message reached you because your frequency aligns with it. At first, it sounded mysterious, almost dramatic. Now it felt quieter, more practical. If he had been in a different mental state tonight, he might have scrolled past it. If his mind had not been questioning, he might not have felt the pull. Maybe the message did not chase him. Maybe his attention made him ready to see it. He stood up and walked to the window. The night sky stretched above the city, silent, wide, filled with distant stars. The universe did not look different, but he did. That difference changed how he experienced it. The final words of the video echoed in his mind. If you are watching this now, ask yourself, what are you tuning into next? Daniel did not have all the answers, but he had a new awareness. He was not just a spectator in a fixed world. He was a participant in an unfolding process, a quiet co-creator through attention and choice. And somewhere within the endless field of possibilities, the next version of his reality was already waiting for him to notice.